your taste buds. If you've eaten chocolate yesterday, I can't expect you to enjoy it now. It's over and done with, finished. But you rise from the body to the mind. And when I offer you chocolate, you say thank you and you put it away in your bag. And then I say, what's wrong? Don't you like chocolate? You say, yes, I love chocolate. Then why aren't you eating it? Because I have a child back home and my son loves chocolate. I want to take it home for my son. You go home and you give your son this chocolate. That child very innocently, because it likes the chocolate, he eats up every bit of the chocolate. He doesn't offer you even a small bite. Do you feel denied? No. You enjoy the fact that he is eating the chocolate, and the enjoyment you experience is far greater than if you were to eat the chocolate yourself. So the moment you escalate from the body to the mind, your happiness increases. You go up still further to the intellectual level. And if you have a national ideal, for instance, any intellectual goal that you want to achieve, you want to be educated, you want to do a PhD. People, if you've done a PhD, you understand how much work you have to put in. Years and years of hard work just to get a PhD in a subject. And you have to deny yourself physical pleasures. You have to deny yourself sometimes even emotional pleasures, because you have to go away from your family and loved ones and focus on the study. But you don't consider that a sacrifice. You don't even feel the pain of physical deprivation or emotional deprivation, because the satisfaction at the intellectual level is so great. The point that the Gita is making is, this you understand. The escalation from body, mind and intellect you understand. The Gita is saying, make that quantum jump from the intellect to the spirit, and you have access to infinite joy, infinite power. Take the example of Prahlada. Prahlada was a young boy who was born in a family of asuras, demons. His father was a king of the demons. And Prahlada was a devotee of God. He had the capacity, that vision to rise to the level of the spirit. And Hiranyakashipu, his father, tried every trick to kill his own son. Nothing happened to Prahlada. So what it means is, the power of the spirit is so great. Once you align yourself with that, that's all that you need to do. You don't need to plan and program how to protect myself against competitors, how to make sure that the banks give me concessions, how to make sure that, I don't know, whatever else you do. You don't have to do anything. You simply have to align yourself with the spirit, and spirit takes care of everything. That is very difficult to communicate. Buddha did that. Buddha had that perception. Either you have it or you don't have it. And if you don't have it, you have to put in effort to develop that vision. Buddha had it. He was a prince, born into a royal family. He was heir to the kingdom. And the day he was born, the father went to astrologers, and the astrologer said, this child has a tremendous future. If he becomes a king, he'll become a Chakravarti, he'll become the king of the whole world. He'll unite the whole of India and he'll become an outstanding king. But if he gives that up and turns to spirituality, he'll become a world redeemer. And that's what happened. That shift, that perception. Now what the Gita is trying to tell us is, you don't have to give up the world and go and take sannyas. This is the uniqueness of the Gita. The Gita brings the knowledge down to our level and says, you can apply it as you are, where you are, wherever you may be. whatever you may be doing, you can apply the knowledge of the Gita and achieve that infinite happiness. It's such a practical philosophy. But you don't understand it. You believe you have to give up your business, you have to give up your job, you have to give up your family, and therefore, because arising out of this misunderstanding, you give up the Gita instead. You pay lip service to it, yes, very nice. Like 8 o'clock you'll all come and say, I hope you'll come and say. Very nice lecture. But that's it. That's not what the purpose of this. The purpose of this is so that we can get this glimpse of the beyond that is within. And if you have that glimpse, if that's invoked in you, then this exercise is successful. Otherwise, it's a total waste of time and energy. So, this vision which Buddha had, after he gained enlightenment, there's something about him, some aura, something unique about him, something very attractive about him. And all the people around came and asked him, who are you? Are you an angel who's come down from the heavens? What makes you so different? Buddha simply said, I am awake. You understand? I am awake. They asked him, who are you? Are you chairman, managing director of some company? What are you? I am awake. What a profound statement. You know what it means? The rest of us are fast asleep. So you have to awaken to the higher possibilities within you. You have to awaken to something beyond that is within you. And it is only when you get a glimpse of it, pursue it and achieve it, that you can consider yourself successful. You're not successful if you acquire a whole great deal of wealth in life. You're not successful if you have some position. You're successful if, in the words of Buddha, you can with all humility say, I am awake. How many of us can say that? How many of us even have that vision? Awareness that yes, I'm asleep to so many things. That's what the Gita is all about. Now we start with the verses. Verse 54.
Arjuna uvacha Hita prajnasya ka bhasha Samadhithasya keshava Hitadhi kim prabhasheta Kimasita vrajeta kim.
Arjuna said, O Keshava, what is the description of one of steady wisdom, sthita prajna, established in samadhi meditation? How does one of steady wisdom speak, sit, walk? The question sounds very strange. Why does he want to know how a person of perfection sits, walks and etc.? But what it is that all of us look for role models in life. We're looking for somebody who epitomizes human perfection or excellence or success. And then using that individual or that state as a benchmark, we try and move ourselves up. But where are the role models today? Today the role models have degenerated into either movie stars, the rich and the famous, etc. Arjuna is aware that this is not, in fact Arjuna himself is rich and famous. He himself is a role model for society. But he hasn't reached that state of perfection because he understands that it is only internal enrichment that makes for external enrichment. He is faced with a battle in life and that battle is waging within. It is not that, you need to remember, Arjuna is a warrior of outstanding caliber. And he is faced with a battle. It is not the opponents, the enemies that have overwhelmed him. It is not the strength of the enemy that has overwhelmed him, but his own inadequacies, his own doubts, his own confusion. And all of us are ridden with doubt, confusion, inadequacies. And it is this that overwhelms us, not external competition. There is nobody in the world who can intimidate you or threaten you. The only person who intimidates and threatens you is your own self. And if you get a handle over your own self, if you have control over your own self, if you understand yourself and find out what's going on inside, then all the confusion will go. It will be replaced with clarity. And then you're fine. And that's all that Krishna did. Krishna removed Arjuna's confusion and Arjuna regained his serenity, clarity of mind. Thereafter, he didn't need Krishna's help. The battle was fought by Arjuna alone, by himself. Krishna only helped to change to remove his confusion. And that, therefore, India, ancient India, in its prime, at its peak, had what is known as Raja Rishis. They were Rajas, they were kings, but they were also Rishis. And when this Rishihood slipped, then they tried to make up for it by having in-house Rishis. They understood that I am not capable of handling myself, I don't have this internal enrichment, but I can make it up by having a consultant in modern terminology. Consultant who at the crucial time, when the king was in confusion, when the king was in doubt, he would consult the Rishi and then get back his bearings, and that's how he ruled. Then the Rishis also vanished. And India is what it is today. We lost our external wealth because we lost this internal wealth. If we have to regain the external wealth, we have to begin by internal enrichment. That's all you need to do. Once you regain this internal enrichment, the world will be at your command. Even today, if you look around in the world, you find anybody with merit becomes successful. We are in an age of meritocracy. So all that you need to do is develop that merit, inner strength, inner wealth, and the world will come to you. An outstanding musician doesn't need to go and advertise himself. The world picks him up and moves him. In any field, it's merit that calls the shots. Do you have the merit is the question. So Arjuna is asking for this internal enrichment, the only lacuna in his personality. He was well trained in every aspect of life except this internal enrichment. So the question is, what is the description of such a person, of a perfect person? How does one of steady wisdom speak, sit, walk? See, the question can be divided into two. One half deals with his inner nature. What is his description? How does he sit? How does he sit means when he is by himself. What makes him tick, in other words? And the second part of the question is, how does he conduct himself in the world? A perfect person is one who has reached the state of self-realization, who has reached the state of infinity. How does the infinite express itself through the finite equipments of the body, mind and intellect? And how does he walk? Walking means interacting with the world. How does a person who has gained that perfection, like Buddha, a person who has awakened to the fourth plane of consciousness, how does he conduct himself in the area of limitation? This is his question. Verse 55.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha Prajahati yada kaman Sarvan parthamanogatan Atmanyevatmana tushtaha Hita prajnasadochyate.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha means the Blessed Lord said, O Partha, son of Pritha, when one completely abandons all desires of the mind and is satisfied in the self alone by the self, then one is said to be of steady wisdom. You know, when you read the translation, it sounds like Greek and Latin. We don't understand it. We understand the language, of course, but we don't understand the meaning, the message behind it. And this is because of the passage of time. You know, the Gita is at least 5,000 years old. Nobody really knows how old it is. But what you need to remember is that this was a conversation between two individuals, Krishna and Arjuna. The fact that it's a conversation means Arjuna understood what Krishna was saying. He didn't need an interpreter in between. He didn't have an interpreter. He understood what he was saying. When he had a question, he asked a question. So, those of you who understand Sanskrit, the Sanskrit language itself that is used in the Gita is very simple. But then what makes it difficult is the passage, due to the passage of time, the connotation, the relevance of certain words, all that has changed. If you want to know what it is, you have to interact with a teenager and you'll understand. Teenagers speak English, you also speak English. But when you speak to a teenager, the teenager uses the same English words to mean different things. Like for instance, when a mother is trying to pressurize her daughter to study, you're wasting your time watching TV and you're going out all the time. When are you going to study? The daughter turns around and says, "Mommy, just chill." You heard that? Yeah, because you've done it with your child. What does this chill mean? Does she mean you have to put yourself in a refrigerator? If this can happen in one generation, what must be the result in so many 5,000 years? So therefore, you have to cooperate a little bit with the language that he's using and stretch to understand what he's saying. So in order to understand what he's saying, you have to get back to what you yourself have experienced. What have you experienced? See, he's talking about growth. Growth from one plane of consciousness to another. We also have gone through growth. We were all children at one time. And when we were children, see, he's saying the crux of this definition is, he's defining a person of perfection. He says, when one completely abandons all desires of the mind, this is the negative, and is satisfied in the self by the self, that's the positive. So when you read it, it's a frightening, it's a very, very negative thing, because you don't want to give up desires. You say, why should I give up my desires? They're very dear to me. What he says, and yet, you yourself have done this in your growth. We were all children at one time, and as a child, each one of us was completely obsessed, totally absorbed with toys. At that stage, if suppose your father were to come and say, what is this nonsense you're fooling around with? Grow up, you understand what you have to grow up and take over my business and I am already 300 crores or whatever. If the father talks like that to the child, to the son, he can't understand what he's saying. No father ever talks to the child like that. The father understands, okay, someday he'll grow up. And he does grow up. So after a while, he gets over those little toys, cars that he's playing with, etc. How does he get over that? He grows to understand the pleasure of computer games. And when he learns how to operate with a computer, he finds that so enchanting, so absorbing, that the toys lose their attraction, temptation. He doesn't even know where the toys are. As long as he was at the level of the toys, have you seen a child? He plays with that, particularly if it's a new toy, some little car. He plays with it, he clings to it whole day. Even when he goes to sleep, he'll go to sleep with the toy clutched in his hand. And right through the sleep, he doesn't let go of it. So much of attachment to the toy. Yet, when he grows to appreciate a higher joy, which is a computer game, the toy drops. All childhood desires drop away when he grows up. Then, one step further. At the level of computer games, he and his younger brother are constantly fighting for the computer. He says, you get half an hour, I get half an hour. It's rationed by the parents. And then suddenly one fine day, the older brother says, you can have it all. I'm going out. What's happened? He's grown into a teenager and he's fallen in love. So computer games no longer attract him. And thus you go on till you become a full-grown adult. Now what the Gita is telling us is, as an adult, as a physical adult, you are still a spiritual child. Because you are playing around with games, with toys. And what are the toys that are enchanting you today? Money, position, power, status, so on and so forth. All enchantments at the level of the body, maybe a little bit you stretch and get to the mind. So physical joys are what you are still stuck with. And what the Gita tells us is, someday you have to grow up, just as the child has to grow up sometime. If a child does not grow into adulthood, what do you call them? Retarded, challenged, physically challenged, mentally challenged. These are subtler ways of saying retardation. But when each one of us has not grown from spiritual childhood to youth and adulthood, you're not aware of it. You don't understand the tragedy that's taking place. So you have to move from spiritual childhood, which is physical desires, pick up emotional desires, as we saw. Once you have love for your child, or love for any family members, or love for anybody, then the physical desires wane away. Rise still further to the intellectual, adulthood, and then go a step. See, intellectual is an outstanding example of this is Queen Elizabeth, the movie Elizabeth, in which this young girl gets, she becomes the Queen of England, and she has many physical desires, she wants to get married, etc. But when she understands her responsibility to the nation, she makes this fantastic statement, and she makes that shift. Says, I am married to England. What a statement. I am married to England. And thereafter, her every action, thought, her entire personality was dedicated to the nation. And it is the greatness of Britain, England at that time, was attributed to this one queen. And this is what escalation to a higher realm of desires does to you. You rise still further from intellectual to the spiritual, and there's absolutely nothing that is not achievable. That's what he's saying here. So there are two distinct aspects. The negative is you give up the desire of the lower as a result of escalation, establishment in the higher. You can never give up the lower unless you rise to the higher. So the first step is knowledge of the higher. That's why it's so important that you gain knowledge. And what Vedanta, the Gita, promises to each one of us is that you commit yourself, you dedicate 1 hour of your daily schedule to yourself, to this escalation, to the higher. And within a year, you'll be a different person. Just 1 hour a day, part-time, almost like a hobby. But you pursue it doggedly, consistently, and you'll be a different person. So this aspect, this thought has been beautifully presented by Plato in the famous Plato's metaphor. In Plato's metaphor, he describes a whole generation of people, a whole community of people who live in a cave, and all they have to entertain themselves, to comfort them, etc., is a fire in the center of the cave. And that fire is the central pivotal point around which the whole generation survives. So suddenly, one fine day,